At about 12:30 last night, I was watching the Gonzaga versus St. Mary's college basketball game, which, by the way, was a great game. St. Mary's ended up getting the win. But on the bottom of the screen, breaking news: Luka Doncic traded to the LA Lakers for Anthony Davis. What? I legitimately thought my initial reaction was that ESPN got hacked. There was absolutely no way that this was popping up on the bottom of the screen. The best 25-year-old in terms of accolades in NBA history, in basketball history, maybe, traded to the team, the biggest market in the sport, who has the greatest player of all time. It literally makes no sense. The reason I thought it was the hackers because it's potentially the craziest scenario that could ever be thought of. And if I'm a hacker and if I get Sham's phone, if I get his Twitter login, whatever, and I'm thinking about the craziest scenario to just put out there to make everyone in disbelief, this is literally it. It is literally the craziest scenario, the craziest trade of all time. At 25 years old, Luka has five straight All NBA first team appearances. He won't get it this year, obviously, because he's been injured. But being a top five NBA player at 25 years old for 5 years straight, it just makes no sense that a player of this caliber can be traded, especially in the middle of the season. Now, Nico Harrison, the GM of the Dallas Mavericks, apparently he gave some explanation. He just had a media conference or post conference um, earlier today. But the initial thought process behind it that I believe was because they believe that Luka Doncic couldn't get them to a championship because he wasn't defensively brought in, which I guess you could come at some side because defense wins championships, I guess. But when you have potentially the greatest offensive talent in the sport's history, you kind of got to look past that. Apparently, Luka Doncic is currently 270 pounds, which is definitely overweight for someone like even someone like him who doesn't even value his athleticism to the highest degree. So that obviously played a part into it as well. But they were trying to trade Luka for 2 months now, which means even after losing the NBA Finals, they thought that Luka Doncic couldn't be the guy to bring them the Larry O'Brien trophy, even after just making the finals while he was in his 24-year-old season. And I think that this is the best case scenario for Luka. You got a front office who didn't believe in you, who thought you were lazy, who thought you didn't really care about the game, and you're going to the biggest market who's going to value you, who's going to try to win you championships, actively add more pieces around you to help you get to the highest level. I think this is a win for Luka Doncic. No idea what the heck the Mavericks front office is doing. They should be ashamed. I just don't think there's much more to say about the Mavericks part of this. I will talk about Anthony Davis in a little bit, but it's just not right. Like, what are we doing? I would hate if I'm a Mavericks fan. Thank goodness. Lakers fan right here, part-time Lakers fan. I also thought that potentially Luka Doncic asked to be traded to the Lakers, but apparently, no, he had no idea he was going to be traded. The Lakers were the only team the Mavericks contacted, while Luka Doncic didn't even want to be brought to the Lakers necessarily. If they made Luka Doncic available and they said, hey, we're trading Luka Doncic, you can't tell me there was a better offer than Anthony Davis and a 2029 first round pick. But nonetheless, let's get to the Lakers side of things where definitely have mixed feelings because Anthony Davis obviously brought us that championship, but we just got Luka got hurt on Thursday, or I think it was actually Wednesday against the Philadelphia 76ers. He's been out for about 3 days. He was having potentially his best season as a Laker, and it turns out his trade value truly showed that. Throughout the whole season, especially as of recently when he sat down and talked to Shams, Anthony Davis did not want to play the center position. And I think one of the things that probably played into this is that the Lakers weren't necessarily not bought in because they wanted to add another center, but that wasn't their number one priority. If adding a center was their number one priority, I don't know if we get to this point. But he gets his wish. He's playing with Derek Lively. He's playing with Daniel Gafford. He will not be the starting center on this Mavericks team. I'm really excited to see what the Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis pick and roll ends out, how it works out. How is Anthony Davis going to be able to stretch the floor with two non-shooters like Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford? I'm not sure. I You never would hate to get Anthony Davis back in a trade, but when it's for Luka Doncic, it just doesn't make sense. To add to that, like I said before, Luka Doncic is 25 years old in his prime. Did he even hit his prime? I'd say he hit his prime. He's in his prime right now, and he's going to be in his prime for maybe 10 plus more years. He's a guy that doesn't need athleticism to hoop. I mean, he really doesn't. That's why he's 270 pounds right now. And then Anthony Davis, who is somewhat injury prone, who's at 31 years old. I mean, wow. And one thing Nico Harrison said in his press conference, which I didn't really understand, was they made this trade to match their team's timeline, which I was like, isn't Luka Doncic your team's timeline? But no, he said Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis was the team's timeline. They matched Anthony Davis to match Kyrie's timeline. They didn't add a younger star to match Luka's timeline. They thought it was more valuable to bring in a guy to match the 30-year-old Kyrie Irving's timeline. What? Obviously, in year two, this is going to be a fireable offense. I mean, would have been absolutely insane is that if this ended up being a good trade for the Mavericks. But what this means for the Lakers is that they have their new face of the franchise. You had Magic, you had Kobe, you had LeBron, and now we're going to have Luka Doncic, which is, man, I also want to shout out the Utah Jazz for just involving themselves in this trade. They got Jalen Hood-Schifino, which, by the way, was one of the guys I guaranteed to be traded at the deadline. That's 1 for 7, by the way. They got Jalen Hood-Schifino for free just for taking on 2 second-round picks, which great trade for the Jazz. I like adding Jalen Hood-Schifino. He's going to be a project play, but he still has good role player potential. And getting 2 free 2nd-round picks, you can't hate it. Perfect scenario for the Jazz, just getting themselves involved in the biggest trade that ever existed. But yeah, I guess tell me what you think in the comment section below. What, like, what? Why did this happen? Why do you think this happened? Is there any other scenarios that maybe we're not factoring in that we haven't thought about? Is there something that we haven't seen yet that could affect this heavily? I just think that the Lakers did win this trade. I understand maybe that the LeBron, Luka, ball dominant players could be a slight problem. But when you're trading a 31-year-old injury prone superstar in Anthony Davis and you're getting a 25-year-old generational talent back, you can't hate that at all. And for that reason, I'm happy the Lakers made this trade. I believe we're going to add another big man in the next upcoming days, especially before the trade deadline. And for the Dallas Mavericks, while the duel of Kyrie and Anthony Davis should be fun, was it really worth this? I don't know. See you guys next time. Peace.